I'd like to welcome you today to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the voter, to hear directly from the candidates. We took questions from the community via email and social media, and now we'll hear views on these important issues leading up to the primary on May 21st. Today's guest is Chuck Geveden, candidate for jailer, and I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So just start off, just a funny question. So what's your favorite prison movie?
Oh my gosh, Green Mile probably.
Green Mile or
Mile's
Shawshank?
Shawshank, well, yeah, of course that's going to be one of your top ones as well. But Green Mile came to mind, but Shawshank is definitely a classic.
Okay. Well, now seriously, just you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and why you're running for jailer.
So my name's Chuck Geveden, and I appreciate you all having me here today. I'm originally from Western Kentucky. Been in Frankfort now for over 25 years. I'm a graduate of the Department of Criminal Justice Training, which is the police academy at Richmond, at Eastern Kentucky University. I'm still a sworn deputy today with Sheriff Chris Quire here, but I have an extensive background in law enforcement, which started in Western Kentucky and then here, worked for 4 different sheriffs here.
Yeah.
I think that would give me the ability to go in on day one and have a relationship with our local law enforcement partners, the city police, state police, and definitely the sheriff's office. Like I said, I'm still sworn and help them with special projects and events. I also have a background in state government. I was an executive director, chief administrative officer. At one of the divisions, I had over 100 employees, multi-million-dollar budget. Right. I think those are important, being able to manage those numbers of people as well as work a budget. And then I also have the last 12 years, I've been a director of business development for a company called Vipath Technologies. Vipath works with jails and correctional facilities all over the country.
Right.
Kentucky, Tennessee is my territory. I'm in some other states around. But I'm in jails on a weekly basis. I see what programs work. I see what doesn't work sometimes.
Right.
So being in the jails on a regular basis, working with these facilities on their technology, inmate communication programs, reentry programs, I think that brings a lot to the table, because jail operations isn't like it was 20, 25 years ago.
Right.
A lot of times back then it was just like put them in jail and they get out. Now there's a lot of programs while a person's incarcerated. I'm very involved in the community here. I'm on the praise and worship team at Capital City Christian Church.
Okay.
I'm, as I mentioned earlier, still a special deputy with the sheriff's office. I'm on the Frankfort Parks and Recreation Board.
Okay.
Chair of that board as well. Chair of the Frankfort Ducks Unlimited chapter. And then I was Big Brother of the Year with Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Bluegrass. Just very involved in the community as well. So,
right.
But with my law enforcement background, being in the corrections industry the last 12 years, my executive experience, I feel like I'm the best candidate for the jailer's position.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about what the jailer's responsibilities are for people that don't know.
Well, first and foremost, it's to maintain a safe and secure facility for the inmates, for the staff. And so to bring those people in once they're either arrested by the local law enforcement or the judicial court, sentences somebody and then they're incarcerated. But while they're in the custody of the facility, it's not just here you are, you're locked in your dorm or in your dormitory or whatever. My goal is to make sure they have the tools and resources they need to be successful when they get out.
Okay.
I think that's very, very important. And that's my plan, is to make sure we increase our community programs, our programs to get them ready to be out in the community. And then rehabilitate them and then make sure they get out safely.
Okay. Well, what characteristics do you think are important in a jailer?
I think a leader, somebody that's a proven leader, is important, and then also having the experience and background, in which I've laid that out. I believe I have the experience and background for that. I think those characteristics are very important, and then somebody who's going to focus on a lot of training.
Yeah.
I think training is very, very important. In fact, there's an old saying that you think training is expensive, try ignorance.
Yeah.
because, not being trained and having somebody that's ignorant to what that policy is or that procedure is could be expensive, even more expensive down the road.
Right.
So right now, talking about training though, officers are required to have 24 hours of training a year. I'm going to go beyond that. We're going to make sure we have at least 40 hours a year of training for officers that work at Franklin County.
Okay. Well, what do you see as the biggest issue facing the regional jail right now?
I think staffing, but, shout out to the fiscal court, Judge Mueller, for actually stepping up and increasing the salaries, starting pay, and those that are there to help with the retention of those staff members. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges right now is now Sheriff Quire and his staff, Captain Ron White, they've done a fantastic job since they've taken over the jail. The getting things structurally repaired and in better shape, and then working with fiscal court to get these salaries up, which like I said will help with the retention. So shout out to them. And that's something I want to build on. I want to build on the foundation that they've laid, and I think I'm the right person to do that.
Okay. This is one that was emailed into us. Where do you stand on changing in-person visitation to video only at the jail? What do you see, pros and cons?
So the pros of that, of having video only, are you don't have to move inmates around. So that's a safety and security benefit. Especially when your staffing numbers are down, which is just to add to what we said a while ago, with those pay increases, their staffing has come up and they're continuing to go up. But that's a safety and security issue when you're moving around inmates for visitation. This is something I deal with on a daily basis in other facilities. Families actually, majority of them really like the ability to do video visits because they don't have to drive. They can do it from the home. They can do it from a ball game, so a parent can actually see, a child participate in soccer or baseball or a birthday party or things like that. Now, I do understand that a lot of families, there are some families that would prefer to have an in-person visit, and that's something we'll take a look at.
Right.
I think there are some benefits to that, being able to actually see the person and make sure they're doing well. So we'll take a look at that and definitely have that discussion on maybe. On some certain circumstances or certain days that we may be able to do that. But from what I hear, and especially being in facilities, like I said, all over Kentucky and the surrounding states, majority of the families really do like the video visit because they can do it at any time, not have to schedule, and then they can participate in those special activities, watch a child graduate from preschool or elementary school or high school, things like that.
Well, with the ball game, I mean, our offices where Kentucky Monthly is located, we share space with the Wanda Joyce Robinson Foundation.
Wonderful organization.
Which is about keeping kids in contact with an incarcerated parent.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought about being able to go to the ball game through video.
In fact, the Vipath, the company I'm with now, in some of the other facilities where Wanda Joyce Robinson is involved, we've actually donated free visits to Wanda Joyce so they could actually make sure that some kids are being able to be connected with their parents and for ball games and special events, birthday parties, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. What actions would you recommend improving contractual services with a medical provider for the jail?
So it's an interesting question because just in today's State Journal, it's been reported that the current medical provider is increasing the cost by 20%. Yeah. And but that's not just that particular medical provider. Like I said, I'm in this industry on a daily basis. So I was just in Tennessee last week teaching a class to some correctional professionals, and spoke with some other medical providers. Everybody's cost is going up because of of a lawsuit, and so their liability insurance is going up. Everybody's. Yeah. One thing I would like to do, though, is make sure that they are providing, whoever is the medical provider here, is providing exactly what they're contractually obligated to do. Are they providing a nurse? Or are they providing an LPN? Right. Those type of things. Because if we're going to pay for a nurse, we want a nurse. Yeah. If it's going to be an LPN covering the shift, then we're going to pay for an LPN, not an RN. Right. Those type of things. But I will say, I know Captain White and the jail staff are, they've said it openly, publicly at the fiscal court meeting. They're very pleased with 3C, who the current provider is. I know that they're working on the mental health aspect of things, which is very important today in our correctional facilities. But we're gonna review those contracts. I think the county's talking about putting it back out to bid, but I want to make sure that we're getting the best cost with prescription services as well.
Okay.
Are we getting the generic form? Or are we paying for top dollar for the name brand?
Right.
Those type of things. So we want to make sure that provider is doing everything that they possibly can contractually.
Okay. Now, is that the way that you would improve revenue for the jail, or do you have any other ideas on that?
Well, as far as improving revenue, it was also reported today about Anderson County is going to be moving their inmates to Franklin County. I think that's great. Right. That we partner with a adjoining county, and the deal that they've worked out is in the benefit of Franklin County taxpayers. We could also bring in some federal inmates. Yeah. Federal inmates, the federal government pays pretty well to house federal inmates. I'm not sure that our staffing is ready for federal inmates because the burden would be on Franklin County to transport that federal inmate, and you have to have 2 guards with that person. So when our staffing is at the level it needs to be, then I think that we take a hard look at trying to get federal inmates back in. Okay. They pay pretty well for those as well. So I just want to make sure that anybody that we're bringing in for revenue, that we're not going to be paying out a lot of money for medical costs and things like that, because Anderson County in this contract is going to be paying for their own medical costs and their own transportation.
Well, that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned programming.
Yeah.
And improving programming at the jail. What ideas do you have for that?
So again, reentry services is what I'm going to be big on. We're going to be hopefully starting a SAP program, substance abuse program, in July. So we'll contract with, the jail will be contracting with the Department of Corrections, starting out about 40 females and hopefully get that up to 80 in the 2 empty dorms that they have there now. The SAP program is a wonderful program. There's Barry Brady in Marion County, Kentucky has one of the best SAP programs in the state. And then there's a program called SOAR. Some people call it, you have different names for it, but basically, and this is something that I really want to focus on. Okay. We want to work with the inmates, teach them how to write a resume, how to conduct themselves in the job interview. Right. Help them with anger issues, do some anger management counseling, things like that. There's a program out there called U-Turn. Mm-hmm. U-Turn actually gets a peer specialist with the person who's being released. And then that's something, it's like a mentor. Right. They'll be able to work with that inmate when they get released. The released individual gets online access to help them, if they feel like they're getting, starting to slide back, things like that, they're able to get some information. But U-Turn is very successful at other facilities, and that's something that I want to really take a look at. One thing I do want to do, mm-hmm. and I'm excited about this, is, and I already decided to do it before I started putting up signs, but I want to declare a war on trash in Franklin County. Yeah. So, we're the capital city. Mm-hmm. It's a historic town. But yet, when you drive into town and you see this beautiful welcome to Frankfort, there's Kroger bags or Walmart bags or styrofoam cups.
Or shopping carts.
Shopping carts, yeah. Absolutely. And so, since I've been putting out a lot of signs, big signs, I see trash everywhere. So if we have our staffing at the level it needs to be, then there's going to be a war on trash in Frankfort and Franklin County. And we're going to have crews out on a regular basis picking up trash. We're going to let the public know this is where we've picked up trash today. And I think it's very important. We're going to work with the county road department, state road department, whatever we got to do. But we're going to have more crews out picking up trash and make Franklin County the beautiful community that it truly is, where I mean, we have a lot of people coming in here.
We do.
Bourbon industry to visit the Capitol.
And those numbers seem to be growing, too.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, look, there's a distillery popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and so I want people to, when they drive into Franklin County, they say, man, this is a beautiful town, which it truly is. But we want them to see that there's no trash on the roads, and that's one of the things I'm going to do.
Okay. Well, the next was about staffing, which you
Okay.
talked about.
Yeah.
The next one would be about equal treatment of male and female inmates. How do you assure that?
Again, that
place.
goes back to training,
Yeah.
making sure you have the right staff in place, you know, female guards, male guards, that type of thing. But it all goes back to training, and that's something I'm going to be big on, as I addressed earlier. The training will take care of that.
Okay, and then the next one's about addicted inmates, which you've addressed that.
Absolutely.
So what changes would you make to policy to hold inmates accountable for criminal activities inside the jail?
It's a great question. You know, I think it was last year they had over 20 indictments just from inside the jail, where inmates brought in drugs, you know, fights, you know, major assaults, things like that. So we're gonna hold all the inmates accountable. Again, that's part of a life skill,
Right.
right? So you know, even when they walk up and down the hallway and they address somebody, we're just gonna be good morning, good evening, yes sir, no sir, and the way I see it, we're going to treat the inmates with respect, but we're going to demand respect back as well. I can't control how they got into jail. I can't control how they or when they get out. But what happens to them while they're in our custody is my responsibility. We're going to treat them fairly. We're going to, like I said, we're going to respect them. We're going to demand respect back. But we're also going to, if there's somebody who brings in narcotics, they'll be dealt with appropriately. But again, going back to those life skills and helping them prepare for their exit is what we want to do. I don't want to see any of these inmates back coming in through the jail. I do want them to come back, but I want them to come back through the front door.
Right.
To stop in and say, hey, Mr. Geveden, it's great to see you. I want to tell you about how your staff and the programs changed my life.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. And that's what this community deserves to have in a regional jail.
Okay. Outside of what you've been doing, talk about yourself and how you handle a high-stress situation.
Again, it goes back to your training and your instinct. Look, you know, I'm like I said, my background is law enforcement, and having been in law enforcement and worked the road, I've been in high-stress situations. I've actually been involved in a shooting situation where an officer was shot next to me. He survived, thankfully, but you know, I was the one that helped cuff the guy.
Yeah.
And take him in. So you know, that's a high-stress situation. You revert back to your training that we discussed, but also it goes back to how you treat people.
Right.
And I think again, if you respect folks and demand respect back, treat them the way they should be treated, then I think everything falls into place on running the facility.
Okay. Well, what other goals do you have? I think you kind of covered that.
Well, look, I'm going to be mindful of the taxpayer dollars for sure. Like we talked about, we got some things that are in the works with the SAP program. I talked about federal inmates. That's some revenue coming in. But as far as revenue that's going to, you know, things that we're going to spend money on, we're going to make sure the fleet is properly maintained. Sheriff Choir and Captain White have done a really good job of that. You know, we have to transport inmates, you know, downtown to court almost every day. You have to transport them to court other places. We have to go pick up somebody who had a Franklin County warrant, and they may be in another state.
Right.
So you got to have reliable transportation to do those things. We're going to make sure our fleet is properly maintained. I'm going to work with Department of Corrections. I'm going to work with our law enforcement folks. So I'm ready for the job. I'm eager to, you know, if the people elect me, I'm ready to take the reins and get in there and make sure we have a facility that our community is going to be proud of.
Oh, great. Well, we're going to give you a couple of minutes.
Sure.
You get to look right into the camera and say whatever you want to say.
Well, listen, I appreciate the plant board, and Steve, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. Look, I've got over 25 years of law enforcement executive administrative experience, and corrections industry experience. I'm going to be the candidate ready on day one to walk into that facility and take the reins. You know, Sheriff Choir and like I said, Captain White have done a fabulous job the last 7 months building a foundation with our Franklin County Regional Jail. I'm going to build on that. Again, talking about training for our staff, working on a lot of reentry programs, putting in the war on trash. I think is going to be big for our community. We're going to expand the garden. Again, that's a life skill for a lot of the inmates there, learning how to maintain a garden. We're going to do even programs inside the jail. Steve, I meant to mention this. There's some certifications that inmates can get while they're incarcerated, so when they get out, they can walk right into a place and get a job because they already have that certification. So there's some programs like that I know are successful at other facilities that I'm going to implement here as well. So I'm ready on day one. I have the background, I have the experience, the proven leadership to be your Franklin County jailer, and I'll make sure it's a facility that we can be proud of.
How can people learn more about you? Do you
Absolutely.
have a website? You have
ChuckGeveden.com, Geveden. So Chuck Geveden.
Geveden. Yeah.
ChuckGeveden.com has all my information on there. You know, I even have my personal cell phone number on there.
Okay.
A lot of people say you don't want to do that, but I'm accessible.
Right.
So all my contact information is on there. It's easy to find me on Facebook. But ChuckGeveden.com, and then that links to all the social media and so forth. So, you know, I'm excited. I'm ready. I always helped candidates with other campaigns in the past. Never thought I'd be a candidate, but when our previous jailer retired, I thought this would be a great opportunity to give back to my community. And with my background and experience, I think I'm the right candidate for that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know our viewers appreciate hearing from you, and this will help them make their choices on May 21st.